That night, I found refuge in an old abandoned cottage on the edge of the radar. My daily radiation dose was complete, the artifact for the scientists had been found, and all the small tasks were done. But after such an exhausting day, I was ready to do anything just to relax. The cottage had been abandoned for a long time, with a dark and neglected atmosphere where every corner harbored something sinister. First, I took out my abacan and carefully set it aside, then I opened a flask of vodka. Sip by sip, the alcohol seemed to burn away the cold pain in my throat and melt the icy weight in my stomach. Inside, a warm relaxation began, allowing the vocal cords, which had just been spewing curses, to finally rest. There was no ceiling in the house, and instead, I saw an endless sky dotted with thousands of tiny points. The stars twinkled in dead silence, as if observing what was happening here on Earth. In the stillness of the night, my laughter seemed to bounce off the walls, and its echo pierced the emptiness, turning the night's silence into an ominous chorus. With an unnatural sense of unease, I hung the flask on my belt and began rummaging through my backpack for matches or a lighter. The tiny, almost silent sounds made by the backpack seemed deafening in this dead silence. Finally, I pulled out a box of matches and closed the backpack. My gaze drifted around the cottage, landing on a pile of broken wooden crates. "Here's the firewood," I muttered, despite the uneasy feeling that had come over me. I grabbed a bundle of firewood, its rotten smell and sharp edges creating an unpleasant sensation in my hands, and headed for the fire pit. In the distance, in the darkness, the faint growling of a pseudo-dog fought its way through the silence, like a ghost reminding me of the presence of something dangerous and unknown. When I reached the barrel half filled with the coals of past travelers, I placed the dry wood from the old crates into it. I struck a match and the fire erupted with a deafening crackle. The bright tongues of flame sharply cut through the ringing silence, and in the dim light of the fire, the house was filled with flickering shadows. Sparks flew from the barrel and, as if striving for something hidden, extinguished in the air. I opened the flask again and without ceremony drank it dry. The warmth of the alcohol spread through my body, but with it came a sense of ominous foreboding. The nighttime atmosphere was especially oppressive. Remembering the legend told by Vovchik Vodorod about mirages, I felt my blood run cold. He had said that in some places in the zone you can see ghosts, not just shadows but real people who live as if nothing ever happened. "Listen," he had said in the 100 Rads bar, "these ghosts seem to live their lives over again without any catastrophe. They socialize, visit each other. Like ordinary people in ordinary towns. Do you understand?" "Come on, that's nonsense," I had replied, not believing this nonsense. "No, it's true," Vodorod insisted. "I've seen it myself and heard it from other stalkers. Do you know Lenyam Rakobs?" "Well, of course. And there's also Kalter." "That's right." So, Konstantin Kuprianov, by order of Vera, or Verdandi as Kalter called her, and his companion Lenyam Rakobs saw a mirage at an abandoned sawmill. But you know what? These ghosts can kill. And if they catch you, then what to do? "Break through and run," he had replied with grim seriousness. Now, lying in the empty house and having forgotten all that, the silence around me seemed thick and dense, like a viscous substance. The crackling of the fire and the howling of the wind were the only sounds breaking the darkness. I quickly fell asleep, with vodka and exhaustion doing their work, and soon I sank into a deep, soothing sleep. In the middle of the night, when I was in the deepest of sleeps, something abruptly pulled me out of it. My sleep was shattered and I felt someone tugging at my arm. At first, I didn't realize what was happening, and thinking it was just a bad dream, I continued to lie there. But then I realized that it was reality. An old man with jangling teeth leaned over me, shaking me by the shoulder. I jumped up, panicked, grabbing for my abacan, but the weapon was gone. Instead, my hand found the leg of a stool, and the old man, noticing my frantic reaction, screamed, "Who are you? A bandit or something? Come to kill us." I bent my legs, trying to free myself from his grasp. The old man fell to the floor, and I, bewildered, noticed that the cottage looked completely different. It seemed as if there were no holes or signs of time at all. The roof was restored, the walls intact. My gaze slid around the corners and settled on a corner where a frightened old woman sat on a springy bed, muttering something under her breath, her rambling incoherent and piercing. A punch to the jaw struck with full force, instantly shrouding my consciousness in fog. I barely had time to grasp what was happening when the old woman screamed with wild terror in her voice. "Sarazenka, what's happening? They're killing us, help us." As I tried to recover, the old man, charging at me with a kitchen cleaver, screamed like a wild beast. Words from Vovchik Vodorod flashed in my mind: "Ghosts can kill. If they catch you off guard, run." The realization that expecting mercy from these otherworldly beings was foolish hit me like a thunderbolt. Without hesitation, I crashed through the window, tearing the window frame off with a deafening crack. Rolling down the slippery slope of the hill, I landed on the asphalt, which met me painfully. Without wasting a moment, I jumped up and ran towards the Rostock plant, the heart of the zone. Looking back, I saw two silhouettes in the window of the cottage. Their soulless gazes pierced me to the bone, as if invisible claws had gripped my heart. Fear paralyzed me and I once again fled. Barmaid, barmaid. I burst into the 100 Rads bar, shocked and blinded by panic. Where's Voderod? No one paid me any attention. Everyone sat still as if a foreign shadow had intruded into their world. I screamed desperately, but the sounds only faded in the echoing emptiness of the establishment. Vovchik! I shouted, spotting my friend behind the bar. I rushed over and grabbed him by the shoulders, but his body was cold and lifeless. His eyes were glassy and empty, unresponsive to anything. What the hell is wrong with you? I roared, losing control in despair and terror. Vovchik! The silence of the bar was overwhelming. I noticed Vodorod's PDA, which displayed a news report announcing my own death. 10 minutes ago, a stalker named Volodya Shamper was killed in the vicinity of the radar. His body was found in a terrible state, mutilated by knife wounds, intestines ripped apart, and his face rendered unrecognizable. No one dares approach the body. The fate of this man leaves only terrible speculation. My legs trembled and the world around me began to crumble. Had I failed to escape the mirage and become part of its nightmarish vision? Or perhaps this was not just an illusion?